Maintenance for a 2022 and up Infiniti Q50 VR30 3.0T. To make this short, the maintenance is going to be like every other VR30. You want to maintenance this car as if it's a GTR. The years don't really matter, but the maintenance is pretty much going to be the same. But here's some tips that I would like to say. Change your oil with a low volatility oil every 3,000 miles. Do not wait 15, 10,000, 5,000 miles to change your oil. There's nothing wrong that can go if you change your oil in a lower oil change interval. In a hotter climate, run 5W30. If you live in a colder climate, run 0W20. Why I'm telling you to run 5W30 in a warmer climate is because these engines run really hot, and what lubricates these turbos and the engine is the oil that you put inside it. The oil that you put in your engine is what the same exact oil that flows inside of your turbo center housing. Nissan only recommends 0W20 because they have to pay less fines and emissions when they have you running a lower viscosity oil, and when they have you running oil for a longer time like they have in the owner's manual. They want you to change your oil every 10 to 15,000 miles. Again, on a twin turbocharged direct injection car, it doesn't make any sense to change your oil at 15,000 miles. Go ask a GTR owner, what is your oil change interval? What mileage do you change your oil? He's going to always say 3,000 miles or less. Again, it's a twin turbocharged engine. You're going to have to do more work and maintenance compared to a naturally aspirated engine like a VQ. Even VQ owners wouldn't run 0W20 or longer oil change interval like 10,000 miles. 10,000 miles in a VQ, the engine is going to be blown. That's why you see a lot of these problems in these VR30s. The reason I'm telling you to run a lower volatility oil like AMSOIL, Motoil, or even Valvoline VR1 is because when you run a lower volatility oil, regardless if you're running 0W20 or if you're running 5W30, that basically means that the oil is evaporating less. So you're going to have less oil consumption when you run an even lower volatility oil. When you run an oil for higher volatility rate, like a cheaper oil, oil evaporates more. And what that evaporation leads to is oil going into your PCV housing and pretty much clogging up your intake valves. Everything is connected. And don't run any ordinary oil filter off of AutoZone or Pep Boys. What you're going to do, you're going to get the oversized oil filter for a Nissan GTR. Now, I've seen different reviews regarding the one that's made in Japan and the one that's made in Mexico. A lot of tuners vouch for the one that's made in Mexico. They said that's good. But based off someone that basically cut it in half, she made her own research and she said that the one that's made in Japan is better. But regardless, go off an OEM oil filter that is oversized, the GTR or QX80 oil filter, that's for the V8s. That's going to have a better filtration rate of your oil and keep your engine running better for a longer period of time. Also, it is known that the OEM oil filters is designed to run the best and has the least amount of defects. So just keep that in mind when you're shopping for an oil filter. Now, we covered oil changes. Let's talk about air filters. Your air filter is right before your turbocharger. The reason why it's so important to change your air filter 15,000 miles, 10,000 miles, whatever less, regardless of where you're driving. If you're driving like sand, you're going to be more prone to having dust and dirt buildup inside your intake. Your intake basically depends on where you're driving. That's why you have to be the one to look at it to see how dirty it is. You shouldn't be running a dirty intake on these platforms, and you should make sure you clean your inlet of your intake as well with some carburetor cleaner or something, because you don't want any dirt going to your turbo inducer compressor side. That dirt leads to the fin of the turbocharger being eaten up, and those tiny little pieces of metal fragments end up in your engine. So you're gonna do your spark plugs, transmission fluid, drain and fill, differential fluid and everything. Those is on the side. I'm not talking about the things that fail on this platform. Those three things don't really fail on this platform. The spark plugs last up to 100,000 miles, believe it or not. On the VR30, they don't really burn out like as quick as a VQ. The transmission, they say it's a lifetime fluid. You shouldn't run it for a lifetime. You should just do a drain and fill. And the diff fluid, those things, you obviously know you got to change that out. But there isn't a rush to do that because those aren't the things that mainly fail on a VR30. I'm mainly talking about the maintenance things to prevent major failure. Even if you do all the stuff I'm saying, things can still go south. You know what I'm saying? But I have a conversation with a guy that owns a manual VR30. He drifts the car, and his wife owns a VR30. He used to work at the dealership. He told me basically what the problems were with a VR30. So as you know, we have direct injection cars, and we pretty much build up a lot of carbon and sludge inside of our motors, which leads to issues with crankcase pressure. And that crankcase pressure, when it gets positive or any sort of like issue with that, it leads to oil being pushed into different places that has a little gap in it. Like say Our turbochargers don't have a true like gap. It's not a true seal. It's not fully sealed off. When you have some sort of crankcase issue, the oil seeps through the turbocharger on the compressor or turbine side. There's different reasons for turbo failure, but that's one of the reasons you would see oil leaking through your turbo. And that's one of the reasons you see a lot of people jumping from turbo to turbo to turbo, because they had a crankcase issue that they never pretty much addressed. They just kept neglecting it over and over again. Whoa, before anybody comes at me, that's one of the issues that cause the oil to leak into your turbo. But there's different reasons, all right? There's shaft plate, yada, yada, yada. But this video is not about this. This video is about maintenance and to prevent all of that. Now, you're going to be wanting to do what I call maintenance mods. Your first modification should be either a oil air separator that's pressurized or even a heat exchanger.